What if I told you, during World War II, the US Navy quietly teamed up with the Mafia to protect America's most important ports, and the key link was the most famous mob boss in the country, Lucky Luciano. On paper, he was supposed to rot in prison for decades. In reality, the war turned him into an asset. This is the true story behind the legend, how Luciano's network was used to tighten security around New York's waterfront, and how his name later got tied to the Allied invasion of Sicily. But here's the twist. Some of what people repeat today is real, and some of it is wartime myth-making. By the late 1930s, Charles Lucky Luciano wasn't just a gangster, he was a system. He helped shape modern organized crime, and persecutors treated him like the final boss. In 1936, New York prosecutor Thomas E. Dewey put him away with a massive 30 to 50 years. So by World War II, Luciano should have been irrelevant, except the docs didn't care he was behind bars. In 1942, New York was the artery of the wartime effort. Ships, supplies, troops, everything moving through the harbor. Naval Intelligence had a nightmare scenario. Axis spies, sabotage, labor chaos, and the longshoremen who could be pressure or sympathetic to Mussolini's Italy. The Office of Naval Intelligence ONI had responsibility for port security and counter-sabotage, and New York was a top priority. Then came the event that poured gasoline on the fear. The SS Normandie caught fire and capsized in New York Harbor. Investigators later concluded it wasn't an enemy sabotage, but in the moment, the suspicion was explosive. So ONI did something almost unthinkable. They looked for cooperation from the Underworld figures who already controlled parts of the waterfront. According to accounts of the operation, ONI started with Joe Sox Lozana, a major power in the fish market, and unions then climbed the ladder. And then the message they kept hearing was basically, if you want real control of your docks, you need Luciano. Luciano still had influence throughout intermediaries, including his lawyer and underworld contacts. ONI sought his help. Important clarification. A lot of people say the Navy let Luciano out of prison. That's not quite right. What did happen is, Luciano was moved to a prison closer to New York, so meetings and coordination were easier. He was transferred to the Great Meadow in 1942. He wasn't free, he was useful. The basic idea was simple. Luciano couldn't control the harbor himself, but he could tell the men who did work the waterfront what to do. Accounts of the Operation Underworld describes a system of eyes and ears on the docks, cooperation through union-controlled access, and the pressure to keep trouble strikes, theft, sabotage, scares from disrupting shipments, and the Navy later acknowledged the big question: how much did it really help? Even Navy historians point out the effectiveness is debated. Still, this much is clear. The US government took the collaboration seriously enough to keep it a secret and keep using it. Now we hit the part people love to repeat. Luciano helped the US invade Sicily. Here's what's supported in mainstream accounts. As the US planned Operation Husky, the 1943 invasion of Sicily, ONI wanted better intelligence, coastlines, harbors, local conditions, and contacts. Navy sources describe ONI using Luciano's name and influence to get access to Sicilian American communities, trying to fill intelligence gaps, gather information, and connect with people who actually knew the island. History accounts say Luciano's contracts provided things like harbor info, coastline photos, and names of trusted contacts tied to the Sicilian Mafia. Through real impact is contested. And there's another key piece people miss. Italian-speaking naval intelligence officers actually went in with early waves and operated behind enemy lines, contacting locals for information about enemy positions and hazards. So did Luciano personally set up guides for American GIs across Sicily and Italy? That's where things get fuzzy. There are claims and stories that his network smoothed the way, but even official-style retellings stress the extent of Luciano's direct impact is debatable. Luciano's name and connections were used to open doors for intelligence gathering, while the actual on-ground guiding was done by military teams and local informants, not Luciano himself. Here's the real ending to the deal, and it's colder than the legend. Luciano eventually applied for clemency after the war, and in 1946, New York Governor Thomas E. Dewey, the same man who put him away, signed off on a commutation timed to deportation. Dewey's own statement acknowledged Luciano's cooperation, but also noted the value of information wasn't crystal clear. So Luciano got out, but he didn't get a victory lap. he was deported and barred from returning. This story isn't just mobsters did a war thing, it's a window on how governments behave under pressure. When the stakes are national, survival lines blur. Law enforcement and criminals, patriotism and self-interest, security and corruption. And Operation Underworld shows something uncomfortable. Sometimes the quickest way to control a system is to make a deal with the people who already run it. If you want more hidden history stories where the truth is stranger than the legend, hit like, subscribe, and comment. Do you think the Navy was justified making a deal with Luciano? Or did it empower the very criminal networks America was supposed to fight?